This session is sponsored by the Blank Slate Knowledge Foundation, Mumbai. Coming up now is a wonderful session by author Kiran Milwood Hargrave, whose debut novel, The Girl of Ink and Stars, also known as The Cartographer's Daughter, was hugely successful and published.
Hello, I'm Kiran Milwood Hargrave and I'm so excited to be here at the Tata Literature Live Festival. By the magic of the internet, I'm able to be here from Oxford in the UK, and I hope you're all having a wonderful and safe time wherever you are. Now, at the end of this session, I'm actually going to get you to take over, and for that you're going to need the most important tools that any writer has. First of all, you'll need a pad of paper, or just a single piece of paper will do. You'll need a pen or pencil, some sort of drawing or writing implement, and you'll also need your imagination. Now, I know that sometimes writing a book can feel like a huge task to undertake. And believe me, it's exactly how it feels for any author, whether they've written one book or 100. Every single book is the start of a new and exciting adventure. And that's really how I feel about writing books. I feel like it's like going on an adventure with my characters. And I have a very special technique for creating my characters and also for making writing a book so exciting for myself. Because I have to admit that in the age of TV and music and podcasts, it's quite hard to hold a reader's attention. So I'm going to share with you some of my top tips to hold a reader's attention and to create a story that not only they will love, but you will love writing. Now, a little bit about me. I'm called Kiran Milwood Hargrave and I currently live in Oxford, but also since I was very young, I have been a voracious reader. Now, when you talk to some writers, they knew they wanted to write from a very, very young age. That just wasn't the case for me. In fact, my earliest ambitions were either to be an astronaut, specifically I wanted to be the first woman on Mars, or to be a cat. That is a slightly strange thing to say, and I am maybe a little embarrassed to say it publicly, but when I was 5 years old, I really did want to be a cat. But I don't want you to be alarmed, I grew out of that dream quite early. What I didn't grow out of was the idea that my imagination could be a really powerful tool, that I could imagine being an astronaut, I could imagine being a cat. And in order to grow and strengthen this tool, what I did was I read lots and lots. And I read all the sort of the normal things that you might have read, like Harry Potter and How to Train Your Dragon. But I've got here a pile of my most precious childhood books, the actual copies that I read when I was a child and that I still keep on my shelf and nearby me in order to inspire and remind me why I write. So one of my very favourite authors, in fact, is Jamila Gavin. She writes the most beautiful stories that are often based in reality, but the way she uses language, it's like she's conjuring a spell. And reading people like Jamila Gavin really taught me that the way a story is told, the language that a writer uses, is just as important to me as the story itself. That might not be the case for you, but for me, it really was from a very young age. Another favourite book was Howl's Moving Castle by Diane Wynne Jones, who also wrote an incredible series called Chrestomanci. I really recommend it if you like magic. And this sounds like a really odd book. And it is a really odd book. It's about a girl who gets changed into an old woman and ends up working as a cleaner in, you guessed it, Howl's Moving Castle. And she moves through all these incredible worlds in this incredible way. And what I love about Diane Wynne Jones is from the very beginning you're swept up in this magical adventure, and it's always exciting no matter what you're doing, even if sometimes the character is just talking to the fire. You'll have to read it to find out what I mean. Another favourite, which I might share with many of you, is Matilda. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only person who thought that they were Matilda growing up, because they loved books so much. And there are gorgeous lines in this about how reading is like setting sail on a ship and finding out new lands. And that's a huge inspiration for every book I write. I understand that sort of that wonder that I felt when I was reading Matilda, and I really wanted to be that character. So a little later I'm going to talk to you about how I create characters that readers will really care about and how you can do the same. But this is about a girl who is in fact so clever that her brain can actually make things move. And I cannot tell you how many times I stared at glasses of water hoping that they would tip over. They never did. And finally, this is possibly my favourite childhood book, Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. If you have not read this and you like adventures, you have got such a treat in store. This is one of the most exciting, thrilling, beautiful stories in existence. It has been made into a film called The Golden Compass, and it has also become a BBC TV show, but the book is really so much better than either of those things. So if you like the sound of armoured bears, dangerous journeys north, and secrets that could threaten the very existence of the world, I really recommend you pick this up. These are quite different books. They have different feels. Some of them are scary, some of them are funny, but what they all share is that they have a certain kind of magic. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're about wizards and witches and fairies and fantasy or dragons. What it means is that they have a quiet kind of wonder, and a wonder that kept me wanting to not only stay in the story but become friends with the characters. And these were all really important tools when I was coming up with my own sort of strategy for writing a book. Because the thing about writing a book is that it's hard and it takes a really long time sometimes. And I don't want you, if you want to be a writer, to feel discouraged by the fact you might find it hard, because everyone finds it hard. Even Philip Pullman, I'm sure even Roald Dahl found it really difficult. So believe in yourself and you could write a book yourself. So how did I come to become a writer? The most simple answer to that is that I wrote. And that might seem a silly answer, but to be honest, so many people fall at that first hurdle because they like the idea of being a writer, but they won't actually sit down every day at a desk like I'm sitting now, and they won't sit down and they won't write. And I understand why that is, because it's sometimes really hard to get started. And I actually went and did a degree at Oxford University to help me learn how to get started. And when I was there, I met so many amazing writers. I learned so many amazing things. But to be honest, the best lessons were the ones that I taught myself through reading. And I started to write The Girl of Ink and Stars when I was on that course. And to be honest, the first thing I did to write The Girl of Ink and Stars wasn't actually writing, it was drawing. I don't want you to have any idea of me as an amazing artist. My husband's a painter, but I myself cannot draw for toffee. Maybe for toffee, but not very well. And the first thing that I did to create Isabella, who's my main character's world, was I drew a map. This is not my map. This is a professional map that got drawn once the book was published. No, my map, when I was sitting down and looking at that blank page, which can be so frightening, my map looks like this. Now, it's very wrinkled and battered now because I actually started writing this story 6 years ago, which is a really long time ago. But this is the first thing I did. I drew the island of Joya. Joya means jewel in Spanish, and I knew that I wanted it to have this sort of magical beauty on the surface, but for there to be something really dark and dangerous in the undercurrents of this island. And you'll be able to see some hints of this. And I want you to pay particular attention to what this is, because a little later, when I start to get you to map your characters, we're actually going to do that by drawing a map. So what I did was I drew this outline and I marked 2 villages on this. The village of Gramera, which is where my main character starts her story, and the village of Carmont. And at this stage, all I knew was that my character was going to have to travel from here to here. And my job as an author was to make that as hard for her as possible. So I populated this with dangers. In the centre is the Marasma, which is a really dark and smelly swamp where you can get sucked down into the bog. There's also a hidden volcano that exists under the whole of Joya that's a constant threat. Around the outside, you've got a swirling whirlpool of a sea. And most importantly, you've got other characters that are going to make it very difficult for her to get where she needs to go. Now, I don't know if you can see that there are dotted lines on all these marks. Each of these different paths represents a different character. There are 2 main characters in my book. They are best friends. They're called Lupe and Isabella. And Lupe essentially goes missing into the island's heart, and Isabella has to go on a quest to try and save her. Now, when you are writing a character, no doubt you will have quite a strong idea about what they look like. But I want you to really think about when you're describing someone you know or someone you love, you don't go when someone says, "Oh, what's your best friend like?" I wouldn't say, "My best friend has curly blonde hair and she's a bit taller than me. I think she's about 5'6", and she has green eyes and pale skin and a snub nose." That's not how I would describe my best friend. What I would say is she is brilliant. She's funny. She is full of life. She's very talented. So I want you to think when you're writing a character as if they're your friend, and what really matters about them, how you're going to communicate that to your reader. And sometimes that can feel quite hard, because sometimes you might decide to write the story in first person, which means you are taking on the role of the character. So you're saying I instead of she. But I'm going to read to you from the opening and see if you can glean a bit of a picture of Isabella from my opening chapter. I want you to maybe even write down on your piece of paper kind of an idea of what she's like. Not only what she looks like, but what her hopes and dreams are. So this is chapter 1 of The Girl of Ink and Stars. They say the day the governor arrived, the ravens did too. All the smaller birds flew backwards into the sea, and that is why there are no songbirds on Joya, only huge, ragged ravens. I'd watch them perch on the rooftops like omens, and try to squint them into the chaffinches and goldcrests Star drew from memory. If I imagined hard enough, I could almost hear them singing. "Why did the songbirds leave, Dar?" I'd ask. "Because they could, Isabella." "And the wolves, the deer?" Dar's face would darken. Seems the sea was better than what they were running from. Dar would tell me another story then, about the girl warrior Winter, or about Joya's mythical past as a floating island, and refused to say more about the wolves and the backwards birds. But I kept asking, until the day came when I found my own answers. The morning it began was like any other. I woke in my narrow bed, sunrise just starting to brighten the mud walls of my room. The smell of burnt porridge hung on the air. Dar must have been up for hours, as it took a long time for the fire to heat the heavy clay pot. I could hear Miss La, our hen, scratching about outside my room, seeking out crumbs. She was 13 years old, same as me, but even though it's young for a person, it's very, very old for a chicken. Her feathers were grey, her mood was black, and even our cat Pep was scared of her. My tummy rumbled as I stretched my arms. Pep was sprawled across my legs, and he yowled loudly as I sat up. "You awake, Isabella?" Dar called from the kitchen. "Morning, Dar." "Porridge is ready. A little over-ready, in fact." "Coming." I eased my legs out and smoothed the cat's rough fur which was ruffled in the night. "Sorry, Pep." He purred and closed his green eyes. That is because I am allergic to cats. True story. I washed my face in the basin by the window and stuck a tongue out at the reflection in the polished metal above Garbo's bed, straightening his sheets, dustier every day, but still made. The voice line arched next to his pillow. A long, thin, hollow Dar had etched for us up the walls and over the ceiling. When we pressed our lips to it and whispered, it carried our voices so we could talk even when we were at each end of the room in our separate beds. 3 years now. 3 years since I sat there, my twin's hand fire in mine as he faded in the night, fast as a blown-out match. But still I could conjure him, easy as breathing. It would not do to start the day sad. Shaking the thoughts out of my head, I pulled on my school dress. It was as big as it had been 6 weeks before. My best friend Lupe would laugh. "Still the shortest in the class," she'd say. I quickly braided my unbrushed hair and hoped Dar wouldn't notice I hadn't untangled it all summer. Pep was rolling on the bed, but I wasn't allowed to stroke him with my uniform on. My teacher, Senora Thelez, was always picking ginger hairs off my dress with irritated fingers. I pulled aside the curtain that served as my bedroom door and carefully stepped over Miss La, who squawked as I scattered her small pile of crumbs. She narrowed her misty eyes and pecked at my ankles, chasing me further into the main room where we ate, talked, and planned adventures. A big bowl of blackened porridge sat on our large pine-plank table, marooned among a sea of maps. More of Dar's maps were stuck to the walls, and they rustled as I passed, like a talking breeze. I traced the papers with my finger, as I did every morning, watching how the silver pigment of Afrique's rivers met those of Egypt, how Egypt clung to the curve of Europa Bay like one hand grasping another across the sea. On the opposite wall hung the sketchy coast of America and its dragging ocean currents, labelled with strange, wondrous names: the Frozen Circle, the Vanishing Triangle, the Cerulean Sea. The paper was dyed a beautiful deep blue, and the currents were picked out in thread against it. Dye had used a needle thin as a hair for these: gold for cerulean, black for the triangle, white for the frozen circle. But past the eastern coast, everything stopped. Only one word broke the blankness: incognito, unknown. Now I bet that you have picked up some details about Isabella from that. And maybe you'll have picked up that she's short, so there is something about her appearance. Maybe you'll have picked up that she has thick hair that's got really tangled because she hasn't brushed it. But what I want you to think about is what those details actually tell you about Isabella. So maybe her being short doesn't say much, other than maybe her parents are short. But the fact that her hair is unbrushed, she doesn't really care about her appearance. She doesn't really care about, sitting down and brushing her hair because she's too busy rushing around, maybe chasing after her cat or her chicken. And also I think that you really get that she loves her father. You also get a little bit about their house. So she lives in quite a small house, and we can tell that because the smell of porridge is wafting straight into her bedroom. So probably the bedroom is really close to the kitchen. Her father is cooking the meal himself, so they don't have a servant or anything, so they probably don't have a lot of money. And more than that, I think you can tell that they share something really special. They share a curiosity and a passion for maps. And that leads us really well onto the task that I'm now going to set you. Now, have you got your paper and your pen? And I don't want you to worry, because I am going to join in with this task. So you can watch me live do this, possibly badly. And I don't want you to be afraid to do it badly. But I have a set of questions for you to just write down, and then I want you to answer them. So I want you to, first of all, draw an island. Now, this can be any shape, and I mean any shape. I'm not even going to look while I draw my island. I wish I'd looked, because it now looks very strange. But this is what my island looks like. So have you drawn your island? Don't think about it too much. I know it's really sometimes tricky and you want to do things perfectly, but you don't have to do this perfectly. You just have to get something down on the page. And I want you to think, you know, most islands were formed by volcanoes exploding and flinging out, you know, bits of land anywhere, any which way. So you mustn't sort of think too carefully. Be like a volcano, just draw it. Have you done that? Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about your island, and I want you to think really instinctively, trust your first instinct. So first of all, where is it? Is it in space? Is it in our world? Is it in a parallel world that's sort of like our world, but not? Is it in a whole new world that no one's ever imagined before? What's your answer? I think I'm going to make mine in space, because I don't know why, but this sort of has a sort of flubber feel to it and a sort of alien feel to it. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to write on the top that I think it's in space. Have you chosen? Okay, next step. I want you to think, how old is it? Now, this might sound like an odd question, but when was it formed? Because if something was formed quite recently, say like Iceland in up north, then it will be a lot more unsettled than somewhere that was created ages and ages ago. So I want you to really think about how old is it? Is it quite sort of volatile? Are there maybe dangers lying in how it was created? I'm going to say that this was created 10 years ago. That's really young for an island. Right, now I want you to think about what it looks like. What are the main colours? If you had a bird's eye view of your island, what are the main colours that would jump out at you? I'm going to say that this was created when an asteroid struck a bigger planet, and this just flew off into space, and now it's floating in space. So I'm going to say that this is mainly browns, blacks, and I'll put some poisonous gas. Now, I hope you're not just copying what I'm doing, because believe me, what you will come up with is a lot better than what I'm coming up with. So there's maybe a cloud of poisonous gas around mine. I'm going to say it's purple. That's a poisonous feeling colour. What does it smell like? This might sound like an odd question, but I mentioned earlier that The Girl of Ink and Stars is set on an island that has an underground volcano. And at one point, my characters go down into the depths of this underground volcano. And what they discover there is that it really smells. Because I don't know if you've ever smelt something called sulfur, which is what exists it is one of the gases given off volcanoes. But it smells like rotten eggs and pongy feet, and it's disgusting. So I want you to think about, what do you think your place might smell like? Now, if you've maybe gone with something that's just floating like a paradise in the middle of the sea, think about the breezes, think about the trees and what they would bring in on them. Think about what fruit might grow there, what flowers, what are all the textures of this island? So I'm going to say, unfortunately, mine does smell of pongy feet. And already, by doing these details, what you're doing is you're creating your own map of what your characters are going to be like. Because if you've gone for the tropical island with the flowers and the fruit, you might have people who live in quite a warm climate, so they'll be able to wear really light clothes. They'll have a really nice diet of fresh fruit and fish. They probably have access to clean water to keep themselves clean. In my place, I think they're going to have to be some sort of alien life form. Quite humanoid, but they're also all going to have to wear these hats and these masks, like so many of us have to wear now, over their faces to block out the poisonous gas. So I'm already forming a picture in my mind of what kind of people might live on my weird floating space island. And I hope you're doing the same for your island. So now let's think about these people. Who lives there? So I'm going to write down some sort of humanoid, alien. I'm going to say they're grey, and this is because they need to blend in with their surroundings in order to sort of hide from what dangers might lie on the islands. What do they eat? Now again, this entirely depends on where your island is located. I'm going to say that these people have to make machines that convert the poisonous gas into water and these sort of globules of nutritious but disgusting stuff, almost like gruel. That's what I'm going to go with. I told you that this was going to be mainly embarrassing for me, and I hope I'm making you feel very clever by comparison. So I'm going to say they eat water and globules of gruel. And where do they work? Do they have jobs, or are they just involved in the business of surviving? So you've started to think about all these things that mean that this map should be coming a bit to life. Even though it's still just an outline, it should be coming a bit to life for you now. You should be able to start thinking, okay, I actually know what this looks like. And that's a really exciting moment always, I think, when your imagination turns something into that becomes a reality. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this, and I've warned you I'm not an artist. And again, I don't want you to be too perfectionist about this. I want you to really go for it. So this is all the poisonous gas that's sort of enclosing the entire island. I'm definitely gonna have some mountains, and I'm gonna have the mountains in the middle because they were created when the island shushed together when the asteroid hit. Around the outside, I think I'm gonna put some mutant saber-toothed tigers. I can't really draw tigers, but I can draw cats. So I've kind of done a Dracula cat to represent the saber-toothed tiger. I'm going to have my main characters living down at the bottom here on this, oh actually I'll have them up here on this settlement. Maybe this is the safest place to be because you can see it's sort of above the level of the poisonous gas. So I'm going to have my houses drawn there. And now I'm going to think about who lives in this house, and also think about why they want to travel to the rest of the island. And I think my main character is going to be a boy. I think he's going to be called, I think G is a good starter name. Gren, like Wren the bird, but with a G. And I think he's going to be about 10 years old. And one day I think he sees some sort of mysterious white light on the top of the mountain, and he's going to want to find out what exactly that's about. So I hope you kind of get what I'm getting at here. What I'm saying is that literally in a matter of minutes, you can come up with the structure for a story, and it all begins just by drawing a completely random shape and deciding what kind of atmosphere it has, what kind of colours exist there, and from all those sort of landscape questions you can actually build not only your characters but a whole story and a whole world for your characters to travel through. And I know I'm biased because this is the way that I write, and I promise you, this is how I've written every single one of my books, from drawing this map for The Girl of Ink and Stars. I also drew a map for The Island at the End of Everything, my second book, and for my third book, The Way Past Winter, I drew, I think, a slightly better map than any of my other maps here. So you can see it doesn't have to be an island, it can be all sort of landlocked. This is just a mission with someone going from the forest up to the mountains and to a floating island. Love an island, can't write a book without them. So I hope that you're looking at your piece of paper, and it might look a mess, like mine does, but I hope it's sort of sparking off some ideas. And I hope more than that, I hope you're trusting your instincts. I hope you're excited about your island and about your character and about their story. I hope you want to sit down and get to know them. And I know I do, so if any of you want to send me your work or want to ask me any questions about any of my books or anything about my reading or writing habits, I would love to hear from you. All you need to do is go to my website, www.kiranmh.co.uk, On there, there's a contact form. And maybe you can send me a photo of your island. I'm also on Twitter if you can get your parents to send me your beautiful drawings. I would absolutely love to see them, and I would love to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for sitting with me through this session. I had so much fun and my brain is buzzing with ideas about Gren and his adventures, and I hope that it has given you some of the tools and some of the confidence that you need to create your own stories. Thank you once again to Tata Literature Live for having me, and I hope one day in safer times I will actually be able to come and visit and meet you in person. Stay safe.
Hello, Mahal.
Sorry about that. I'm going to start and thank Kiran Milwood again. So, a huge thank you to Kiran Milwood Hargrave for that tremendous workshop for our imaginations. A big thanks also to our festival sponsor Tata, as well as our session sponsors Blank Slate Knowledge Foundation, Mumbai. Remember, you can buy your books, all the books that that Kiran spoke about, from our bookstore partner Tata Click. So get your parents to log on and buy you all the books that you like. And if you get inspired by all these wonderful writers and sessions that you're visiting, and if you want to pen down your own poems and get them published, then you can do so, and we'll publish them on our website, Tata Lit Live. But you can email them to us at info@litlive.in. I'll repeat that email ID, info@litlive.in. And you can send us all your poems with your names, and we will publish your poems on our website. Coming up in the next 15 minutes at 2:45, you can learn the art of visual storytelling through dance and music in the session titled Birdie Dance. Mudras show the story. Don't forget to go to tatalitlive.in and mark out all your favorite sessions so that you don't miss any of them. And there are a ton more all the way through till Sunday, so definitely log on and stay tuned. I'll be signing off now and see you soon again in 15 minutes. Bye.